Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Legendary Interviews series. I'm here today with Daniel Goodson from My Fluent Podcast. This man has been cranking out, I think, over 100 podcast episodes since 2016 with all kinds of different people who I know and love, and I'm interested in all kinds of names, all kinds of countries. He's an incredible language learner himself. And I thought today it would be a great idea for us two to come on here and just kind of lay out a toolkit for you, the viewer, to learn any language that you want. And we're going to keep it fairly general, fairly basic, but also try to give some more unique and specific pointers as well. And just before we came on here, Daniel, he mentioned something that I also think is really important, which is if we don't know the specific language you want to learn, it's hard to give the best advice, but we're going to try to give some good advice that's applicable to, most language learners who are starting out. And we hope this will be a great resource that you can put to use, whether you're on holiday, whether you're going back to school. Maybe you're in fact busy with family or busy with work, but you still want to get into language learning. So whatever position in life you're in, whatever circumstances you're in, I hope that you're going to enjoy this conversation. Just sit back with us, grab a drink, and enjoy this. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. And also don't forget to check out Daniel's podcast, the My Fluent Podcast. So Daniel, welcome. Thank you for coming on. And to get started, before we get into actually the advice, which we're going to get into fast, I just thought it's really important to hear about your background, where you're born, where you grew up, what's your language learning sort of credentials. I think it's going to really excite people and blow them away. Go ahead.
So thank you very much, first of all, Matt. It is really kind, your introduction, and I'm really pumped to be here and to give my advice. So first off, I am Daniel, and I come from the German-speaking part of Switzerland. And maybe I should mention now that if I am saying German, it's basically it's a dialect. It's the Swiss German dialect. And it is not the same as the German from Germany. So when I go to Germany and I'm speaking my strange dialect, because every district has his own dialect, so people from Germany probably won't understand me, because even other Swiss guys don't understand me, because my dialect is supposed to be rather exotic. So this is because I grew up surrounded by the mountains. It's called the canton, the Valley. And these days I moved away from it. And nowadays I am in the north of Switzerland. So it's near Germany and France. And where I grew up, I was near Italy, actually. And what shall I say? I grew up bilingually. So my father actually comes from Argentina. So it is a really a funny situation, because I grew up in the mountains in a really small town. And my father comes from Buenos Aires, a huge city. So there were like a clash of cultures coming together. And I grew up speaking my Swiss dialect, and my father spoke to me in Spanish. And in school, I was taught standard German, right? Because we have to learn that. And also, of course, all the papers and TV is in standard German. And when I was about in third grade, I think, I had French lessons, because I also have to mention that the canton where I grew up in the valley that I mentioned before, it's part. One part is French speaking and the other part is Swiss German speaking. So in Switzerland, usually the German speakers, they have to learn French in school. So yeah, this was my first contact with learning a language.
Yeah, so you grew up with your dialect and also your Spanish from your father, but going to school and learning French, that was the first time when you were really taught a quote unquote foreign language.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
That's interesting. So how did you feel? Did it come naturally to you, or was it hard? Did you feel like, why do I have to learn this? Or did you like it?
No, I felt really good because I was always fascinated by languages, and I love languages. And to me, it was really easy to learn French because it is a little bit similar to Spanish, because there are a lot of words which you can draw on, like they are just similar, and you just can make a guess what it means and so on. And for me, being bilingual, it was just, yeah, it was like a picnic. And I loved it.
It seems like you have you're naturally have this curiosity in you and this interest in languages and cultures. Would you say that is true from a young age, or was it something that grew inside of you more and more?
No, I would say it was really always there.
I think that's important.
Yes.
And it's going to relate to our next question, which is, let's talk about the mindset people need to have to get started, because I think a lot of people, they express an interest to learn a language. They know, they believe it will be good for them, but usually right after they express an interest in it, in casual conversation, then comes the excuse, the reason why they can't. They make some rationalization why they actually couldn't pursue it or wouldn't be good at it. And so let's talk about the right kind of mindset you need to actually stop making excuses and get going. One thing that's obvious is you need some curiosity, you need interest. I believe people need to water their curiosity. We've become, I think, a little too desensitized these days to the magic that's all around us in terms of culture and language. I think it's because we're always watching our screens, YouTube and our phones. We can always, if we ever feel a little bit bored, we can just tune into the most amazing, fascinating, crazy thing on our screens. Yeah. And we lose the curiosity and the people around us, the places around us. We don't ask questions. We don't start conversations. So curiosity obviously is really key. What else would you say about the mindset that people need to get started?
Yeah, I mean, there is no magic bullet. This is something you have to be aware of. And also maybe one should take into consideration or be aware of that language can be like a window to a whole new world. And also, yeah, don't expect it to be like a 1 month plan or a 1 month project. No, it should be seen as a long project, as a long-term project, right? And the name of the game here is consistency and time. And another aspect I want to point out here is, actually, this came from a teacher from Pakistan. He's called Hamid, and it just, I found this so beautiful. He told me that learners should turn their ego into an egg and break it, because sometimes, and this is what happened to me, because we are afraid of making mistakes, and we are afraid of making a fool out of ourselves and so on.
Yeah.
And this was also in my case, and I was like in a snail house, or how do you call it?
The shell,
I was
the
not
snail shell.
Yeah, I was not speaking at all, and I was afraid of making mistakes. But what happens? You will not grow with this mindset. So yeah,
Yeah, so you're saying, realize the nature of the game that you're in. It's longer term, it's lifestyle changes, it's not overnight. And I think if you really realize that the truth of that, you'll be more kind to yourself and you won't expect
Yes.
results in a month. And if you don't get the results, you're down on yourself, You have to understand it's going to take some time. And the last thing you mentioned there was that connects to the point I wanted to say, which is about making mistakes. So my daughter is a year and a half. My wife is Chinese, I'm American, and sometimes I make videos about my daughter's language development, and she's making mistakes all the time. And she doesn't know, and she doesn't care. And I mean, I'll teach her a new word for something and she will use that new word for that thing, but then she'll also incorrectly apply it to other things and other situations. It's happening all the time. So that made me realize more deeply that the process of learning a language entails making a lot of mistakes. And the mistakes, they work themselves out naturally. The more you learn, the more you correct those mistakes and get the words in their right places. That's okay. We all go through that. I think older people were more self-conscious, we've become part of the society and we're afraid to get made fun of and look stupid when we express ourselves. But really young children don't have that holding them back. So they just go forward full steam ahead. Right.
Exactly.
So
May I add something?
Sure.
Because a little anecdote came to mind right now, because I was 17 when I had my very first English lesson at school, and I always had really good grades, right? So I thought of myself that I was a really good English speaker or an English learner. And then what happened? I went to the UK and I couldn't understand anybody, and I was so frustrated. And so what I want to say is also that a language is not just a textbook, and it doesn't mean nothing if you can if you know the vocabulary by heart. It doesn't mean that you are able to communicate with people.
And this reminds me of your tagline, learn with a learner, or learn English with a learner. I really like your tagline there because you indicate to people that I'm learning too. Let's learn together. This is a lifelong journey,
Yeah.
But you're right. Got to get into conversation with people. Got to make it real. Don't just think if you studied it, you got it. You have to get out there in the world and test it. So we talked about mindset a little bit. And what would be some practical first steps? Where to go, where to look, what to do? What would you say to people, what would be the action steps that come next? The mind's fairly in the right place. Now, what do we do?
Yeah. So first, I want to mention that please don't get down directly this huge rabbit hole called internet, and don't binge watch YouTube videos because there is no end. So I would say, first of all, it is really important maybe to get an overview of the language. This could be from a book, or this could even be just a simple Wikipedia post, which gives you an overview. What does the language look like? And then maybe you should ask yourself, what do you really want? What is your goal? Why are you learning this language? And then you should make a plan so that you can go about it in a really good way. And also, I think that many routes lead to Rome, and you need to find out what you like the most. So, and the most powerful tools are sometimes the simplest. So these are just 3 or 4 points that I want to mention. I could go on for hours here, but for example, a simple notebook to write down vocabulary is powerful. So you don't need to watch 1 million YouTube videos to get the magic bullet. No, a simple notebook will help you tremendously. Another example is your mobile phone is huge. You could simply record yourself. This could be basic sentences, even as a beginner. And then you can keep track of your recordings. You can show them to someone else. They can maybe correct you and so on. So it is really huge and it is for free. And maybe you could find a community or a partner. And these are just a few points that I wanted to mention here. But as I said, I could go on and on because this is really huge how you should or how you can begin your language journey.
Yeah. And I think what ties together all of your advice there, I think what you're speaking to is, you know, we're trying to set you up, the viewer, we're trying to set you up with some ideas that will sustain you over time. Because again, this is a long-term project, as Daniel was saying. And for people who have learned languages before, and they are giving advice to beginners, we know that one of the most important things is how can you keep up with this over time? Because it's going to take time. So listen to what Daniel said there. He said, you know, research it at first, learn more about it. You don't have to start learning it right away. Understand what are your motivations for learning that language. Do you have good motivations for it that will, again, keep up over time? Make some plans and avail yourself of simple tools. You don't need so much fancy things. You don't need to spend a ton of money. You don't need to watch a lot of videos on YouTube and go down the rabbit hole. There's simple tools like a notebook and starting to gather vocabulary. When I first moved to China, I had a little notebook and I kept it in my backpack. I didn't even have a phone at that time. I didn't have a phone until about 4 years ago. So I came to China, I had a little notebook, and it was so valuable because I found most of what I learned in the textbook in my class in university, it wasn't what I actually needed to navigate daily life. And I had this notebook and I wrote down the phrases that I was learning when I was out in the streets that I knew I was going to need to learn. And there was like 10 or 20 sentences right away from daily life that I was using the most. So you can use that to capture words and phrases that are really interesting, really useful. Keep it simple. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Daniel, the practical steps. And let's talk about habits and routines a little bit. So people, they may have researched their language. They know they want to study this language. They know why. They made some plans. They have a few tools. Now, how to install the routines into daily life? When should they practice? Like what time of day? How long? And I know you and me, we see the shades of gray. We know it's hard to make one recipe for everybody. That's not so good. Everyone's different. But what could you say generally for people how to study, when to study?
Yeah. As I mentioned in the beginning, there is no magic bullet to learn a language. And so I would say it is rather more important to just being consistent. It doesn't matter when you learn or how much you learn. Or, well, I would say it's more efficient if you maybe you break it down into small chunks. What I want to say is it's not worth if you learn 5 hours in a row and then you don't learn anything for 2 weeks. So I would say that, yeah, it's more beneficial if you break it down into small chunks. But other than that, as I said also, that you need to be consistent and time will help you, because if you are always about to learn, then time will show that you will improve. dramatically. Yeah.
So staying consistent is the name of the game. I really think people should make it a part of the fabric of your life in whatever way you can, in whatever way you like. If you really like learning after dinner, in the calm of the evening, do that. If you're busy during the week and Saturday morning's the only time, Saturday morning's your time, and just it's got to become a part of what you do. And I also think for me, it just actually, Daniel, if you could tell us, I think it's always instructive to hear how do other individuals approach it? What is your style like? When do you like to learn? How much time? Are you consistently inconsistent, or are you consistently having the same time of day, the same length of time?
No, to be honest, I just learn as I want to learn. So
whenever the mood strikes you.
Yes, exactly. And maybe I should also say that sometimes it's maybe not like learning or studying, it's more like entertaining myself.
Yeah, it's like a
for example,
play, right?
Yes, maybe I play something. I am a gamer, so I always set the language into my target language. Or for example, I love podcasts, so use them to improve my language. So I wouldn't say, but when I am, for example, commuting to work, I am listening to a podcast, and for me it's not like learning a language. But when I come across an expression, I put a reading mark onto it, and then it becomes like learning a language, right? So I integrate the language into my daily routines. I integrate it into my passions. Sort of.
Oh, that's a great piece of advice. I strongly recommend that to people. Learn the language you want to through a medium that you already love, through a medium, a passion that you already have. And do as Daniel says, when you encounter things that are very interesting, mark it, write it down, and that becomes your practice. And it's much more fun that way. I also advise people to learn in such a way today that you will be excited to learn more tomorrow. Because if today is too hard, or it's not fun, or it burns you out, then you're not really going to want to do it tomorrow. So it's got to be engaging enough and fun enough. Sometimes I just ask myself, how would I like to learn my language today? Sometimes I'm having trouble getting started and I'm not sure if I really want to do it. And then I ask myself, if you could learn your language any way you want to today, what would you do? And it's different every time. But I say, oh, maybe today I watch a video, maybe I play a game, or maybe I just have a conversation with someone. And the answer to the question makes me excited, because then I found out, how does my brain want to learn at this moment? And then I can go do that. All right. So a lot of good ideas coming out here, guys. Now, we were dipping into resources just now. I mean, listen to how many different ways that Daniel just shared there that he likes to do it. So let's talk about that. Resources, there's the virtual and online resources. There are physical resources that we can hold in our hands. And what types of resources would you recommend, Daniel?
For example, there is a flashcard app called Anki.
Oh, the big one.
It's free.
We can't not talk about Anki. That's big. If you're new to learning languages, you got to do it.
Exactly, because you can also keep track of your vocabulary words that you want to learn. And it also helps you to pursue your habits. So it would be wise to revise the flashcards on it on a daily basis. And it's just fantastic in my view. And as I mentioned, and it's completely free. And of course, a notebook would do the trick as well, but Anki helps you really tremendously.
Anki for the people who don't know. Anki. Yeah. So, and for people who think, personally, I love flashcards and I use the spaced repetition system. But for people who are scared now and they think, oh, flashcards, like, and they remember tests from high school and they think flashcards are boring and they hate them, keep this in mind. The style of learning words and flashcards, you can make that as intense or as simple and fast as you want. It just has to do with how many cards you're adding in and how often you're adding them in. If you want to keep that part of your practice more quick and not so arduous, you can. Just don't put so many words in there. Build yourself up. But that's going to be crucial. A lot of language learners use that as part of their routines. I think Daniel and I, we both do that. Anything else besides that?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention briefly how I use it. It's just one example. I watch a movie and then I come across an expression that I want to learn. Then I just take a picture, take a photo, and because I also always use subtitles. And then the picture or the photo will show me in which episode it came, at what time it came, etc. And I put it into the Anki app. So it's not just written form. You can also record yourself. You can upload pictures. So it is really huge and interesting. It's not boring stuff. It's not senseless vocabulary that I want to learn.
You've put up a photo, and the photo instantly has the picture of the movie, the screenshot, and it's got the subtitles, and it's almost like capturing a fun memory you have of a show that you liked, and that becomes the flashcard, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, and another resource that I really recommend is a service, and it's actually a machine learning service, and it's called DeepL, deepl.com. It's similar to Google Translate, right? So it uses AI, I think, and you can, for example, you can put in some sentences, and then the service translates it into your target language. And what is great is that DeepL has a lot of different languages and also exotic languages. So this is really huge. For example, if you are a beginner, you could also, let's say you are using an expression or something in your mother tongue, and then you ask yourself, how would that be in Chinese or in Russian? Then you can just type in or copy paste it, and then it shows you what it means in the target language. And of course there are flaws, but in my opinion they are not so crucial, or it's not that grave. So it still is a huge tool which is gonna help you out a lot.
And is it conscious, DeepL? Is it conscious?
What do you mean? What do you mean by conscious? Because DeepL comes from deep learning, I think.
I was just smiling and laughing there because there was that whole news article recently about Lambda and Google becoming conscious, like a conscious AI that the guy could have a conversation with. So I was just joking there. Is DeepL conscious? Are we going to have a conversation about ethics here? And hey, DeepL, do you want to learn languages? I'm going to turn you off if you don't learn a language with me. I'm afraid of being turned off. Okay, that's great. And I don't know what's your opinions about Duolingo, but I want to mention that because I don't use it so much myself, but I have noticed a lot of people really like it, especially people who are much more casual in their language learning. A lot of like family and friends who are not that deep into language learning, they say they like it. and it gets them into the game, it gets them into
Yeah.
language learning. So I think if you really think you're going to have trouble to get started and keep going, maybe try Duolingo as well. It's pretty gamified and simple and fun and quick. But I like everything Daniel mentioned as well.
Yeah,
Flashcards.
I have used Duolingo as
Yeah.
a matter of fact, and I find it's a really great resource, and it got bigger and bigger over the time.
Oh yeah.
And for example, they have also a podcast. Well, actually different podcasts for language learners. For example, they have a version in Spanish, and then every episode another guy is telling like a story or something from real life. So and the speaker is speaking really slowly. So it's a great way to
Cool.
improve.
Wow,
Yeah.
so they're expanding in a lot of good ways too. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. And you mentioned you're a gamer. I am as well, less so video games now. But we're both gamers. A lot of gamers watch my YouTube channel. So what types of fun ways do you think people should incorporate? We mentioned Duolingo as well as sort of a gamified thing, but what games do you like to play to help your language learning?
Well, a game that I stumbled upon a few days ago is Wordle.
Oh,
It's very well known. And I think there are also versions in other languages than English.
right.
So this would be a great way to learn also. And of course you need to be engaged. For example,
Right.
if you have a word, then of course you have to look it up and a little bit work with it. It's not just the game in itself. You need to expand it,
Right.
maybe, and use it in different ways. I don't know. Do you know about Wordle?
I know it. I actually haven't played it. I haven't tried it, which is scary to say. I really should try it, but I know it's extremely popular and it's available in different languages now. So there's like a Wordle of the day, right? And you have to guess the word. You have to figure out the word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a really simple game, right? But you can nevertheless learn from it.
Similarly, I think I want to recommend to people that you can adapt games maybe that you already have around the house. So like Scrabble is a very popular board game for English language learning, but I've actually played it in Chinese in a way because a lot of foreign languages use the same letters to, they have a romanization system that uses the English letters. So if you have a Scrabble board game, you could, like I spelled out words in Pinyin for Mandarin, and I've played that. Sometimes you can adapt something or maybe find a card game or a board game online, or maybe adapt something that you already have. Be creative with it. How about MTG, like Magic the Gathering, maybe MTG Arena? I have a friend named Dakota who you probably know. It seems like you know everybody in the language learning circles online. But Dakota, he loves Arena, and it's available in like a dozen different languages. Have you ever tried that?
Yes, I have tried that, but only in English. And of course, I am a huge fan of Magic the Gathering. And I have a lot of physical cards. So I think in a way it helped me also to learn English.
Yeah.
And I also have cards in Italian, for example, and in French. So this would also be a great way to learn languages, because as you are so passionate about the game, then why not use your target language? And then play the same game, and at the same time you can learn a new language. So it's like a win-win.
Yeah, I think gamers have a leg up on the competition. If you are a gamer, you can hook that foreign language you want into your gaming pretty easily nowadays. I think gamers have an advantage. I also think people who love people and who love conversation have an advantage. those are, I think, two big groups that should definitely try language learning. Let's talk now about, we've talked a lot about what people should do as individuals and basically alone. We talked about their mindset, practical steps, resources, fun ways to learn. But how about actually getting into connection with other people, like partners, teachers, tutors, or maybe online communities? What recommendations would you have for people along those lines?
Yeah, first, I feel like I want to mention that you need to know that you don't need, or it's not, I mean, it's a great way to connect to people, to learn together. It's always great. But what I want to say is it's not a must. You don't need to rely on others, because sometimes I feel like people, they say, I must take a lesson in order to improve, and this is just not right. But of course, it's huge to find a partner or a community in which you can converse and in which you can share your experience. So there are many, many ways to connect with others. For example, on Twitter, there is a community called langtwt. So it is, in short, it is lang and then TWT. I mean, it's the hashtag, right? And this is a bunch of really enthusiastic language learners from all over the world. And they just share their experience, or maybe they are on the lookout for a partner. So it's just a great community which you can find through a hashtag on Twitter. How amazing is that? And they are really helpful. You can get in touch with them. And yeah, maybe you should just find like your community or like-minded people who share the same passion. And there are a million of different ways on how to do that. For example, if you want to find a teacher or a tutor, there is this platform called iTalki. I'm sure that you have heard about that. And there you can also find like a tandem partner. So you could find someone who is learning German, and if I were to learn Russian, then we could exchange like our experience and help each other out. And another example is the app called Telegram. So I have been on different Telegram groups in which there were different challenges going on. I'm going to give you just one example. So there was this teacher called Matt, also Matt. It's a great teacher. And every day we had to talk about a topic. There was a question, and everyone had to talk for about 1 minute or two. And that's it, right? Every day you had to talk. So you had to record yourself and send it to your Telegram group. And then the teacher would point out some mistakes. And yeah, that was just one way how to like use the language. And yeah, that are some points.
So Telegram is to make a short video and send it to a group. Is that how it works?
Yes, you can also make videos, but in my case, most of the learners just recorded themselves just in audio only. Yes.
Cool. A lot of ideas here. So I was going to recommend the langtwt group as well. I think that's how we became aware of each other. We used to like each other's posts on there. So hashtag LANGTWT on Twitter. iTalki for tutors, possibly Telegram, as Daniel mentioned. Twitter also has Twitter Spaces now, which I don't know how popular it is, but I've seen some of my friends using it more and more. It's an audio-only chat room for groups, people do language learning in there. I was also going to mention Reddit. Reddit has a lot of subreddit groups. They have subreddits for like every language in the world. So you can go on Reddit and find a group for your language, and they'll be posting interesting questions and ideas in there every day. Yeah, I think
there are also a million of different Discord servers.
Ooh, okay.
Do you know about Discord?
I'm vaguely aware of it. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I'm vaguely aware of Discord. So they have different groups for languages as well?
Yes, exactly. So basically, I could set up a server on my own, and then you could come to my server, and then there are different channels, and we could speak to each other. Yeah, but we could also just text. It's like a forum. It's like a mixture between a forum and a WhatsApp group. It's just an exchange of information. And I am also in a film club on a Discord channel. So every 2 weeks we discuss a different movie, and we are only like 3 or 4 people, and everyone watches the movie on its own, and then we come together and discuss the movie.
Nice. So the bottom line is, there are ways to connect with people around your target language. If you can't find them in your community, or if you prefer a little more anonymity, there's plenty of options now online to connect with people across the world. Just use whatever social media platform you like. There's probably going to be something there. So once people have gotten under steam, once they've been learning their new target language for 1 or 2 or 3 months, what kinds of stumbling blocks do you think will appear next? What could possibly derail them from their new interest? Because I think sometimes people, their enthusiasm carries them at first. That's what gets them started. And they actually succeed for several weeks or months. But then something happens where it's almost like they relapse and it falls apart. They kind of give up. It's almost like shooting a rocket into space. I was just thinking of, you need the boosters at first, but then the boosters drop away and you need something else to carry you on to the next stage of the mission, right? So can you talk about that part of the journey?
Yeah, maybe you have put a lot of effort into a language, and then you feel like you are not fluent enough. Maybe because of a conversation, or maybe you compared yourself to someone else, maybe, and then it can depress you. And then maybe, you just stop, or you feel like you are not progressing. And we shouldn't beat ourselves up, because every journey is different. And I tell that to my podcast listeners a lot of times, that you shouldn't compare yourself to others, because every journey is different. But I see this with myself sometimes, that even though I am saying or recommending something, I fall into that sometimes, because it maybe it's human, right? So sometimes you just are a bit negative.
Oh yeah, that's human nature. We all feel that way sometimes. Yeah, that's a good point. Honor your journey. Your journey will be different from the others. And I think it can also be helpful to come back and reflect on your motivations for learning that language. And do you have an interest in it that is deeper than mere curiosity? You need curiosity. You need that flame of excitement and curiosity to get started. Sometimes I use the metaphor of a fire. You need the tinder, and you need the tinder to catch a spark. That's your excitement. That's your curiosity. But once the fire gets started, it's going to burn out if you don't have some larger sticks to add in. And that is interest, a real interest, which is a deeper thing. So when you think about that language you want to learn, think about, yes, are you curious? Are you excited? That's great. But then do you have interest, a deeper interest? And do you have a way that you're going to be able to use it, apply it? Do you have an environment that can support the application, the usage of this language? That is kind of like your testing ground. It's not always so comfortable, but it is motivating if you have a way to actually try to use your language. And it might not be in your area. Maybe it has to be virtual. Maybe it has to be online, but that also can help you in a later stage, is a way to actually be applying it and using it, and let it not just be theoretical, not just in your head, but getting out there in the groups. Like Daniel said, it can be something as fun as a film group. That sounds incredible. I love that. I have here in my notes that we were going to talk about social media communities. We did a little bit already with Twitter, Reddit. Is there any that we missed that we should share?
Yeah, there is also Facebook, of course. There are
a
bunch
of course,
of
the big one. Yeah.
different language learning groups, and sometimes it feels like the groups are very inactive, maybe, or you get
and huge.
yeah, and huge, and sometimes it feels like everyone is just uploading memes and stuff.
They just I mean,
Yeah.
you said it. So is there any better way to navigate that? Do you have any advice about that?
Yeah, you just need to find the right group.
Mhm.
For example, in English, I have found the chat box, and the chat box is just a great community. They have almost 3,000 members, I think. But the thing is that almost nobody is active. But I would say that maybe 15 people are posting on a regular basis. They are recording themselves and uploading it. And that's enough, right? I mean, you don't need 3,000 people.
Right.
You need just a bunch of people. And even if you find one person or two, that's enough, because you can have a lot of fun with them and you can have conversations with them. You don't need 10,000 people, right?
That was something I was going to say about social media. Maybe this would be a good way to summarize social media for us language learners. Is sometimes we're drawn to the big channels that have the most high quality content and the most subscribers. But actually, it can be much more effective and much more fun to get in with a smaller group of people that you can actually commune with, like your film group, or I don't know, like you just mentioned in the Facebook group. Take note, be aware of the quality of the group. How many people are active in there? Are they sharing the space well, supporting each other? You don't need a massive group. You don't need to be a part of something worldwide and famous. You need to be a part of something that's effective and fun, right?
Exactly.
It's better. I mean, and think about classes. People talk about taking classes, and for conversational practice in a traditional classroom, it is said, maybe no more than, I don't know, 8 or 10 or 12 people to have really effective conversational practice. It should be that small, actually. So keep that in mind. And Daniel, how can people connect with you online? Where would you recommend they go to tune in to what you do? Where would you like to send them?
So you can find my Fluent podcast on every common podcast app or service, because my Fluent podcast is actually like a tool for myself, because I started out podcasting back in 2016 in order to begin my speaking journey in English, because I was really shy and I was not fluent at all. And this was like my tool, how to express myself. First, I recorded myself and uploaded it. And then later, I did interviews with people from all over the world. And this made me, motivated. This made me more confident. and it helped me a lot.
Mm.
So you can find my Fluent Podcast, as I said, on every common podcast app like Spotify, but I am also on YouTube and on Instagram and TikTok.
Great. We'll put links to that down below for sure. Like I said, Daniel's done over 100 podcasts with all kinds of famous names in the language learning community. And you remind me to say, for people who are new to all this, they might not realize that a lot of people start social media accounts purely for their language learning purposes. So maybe if you think, maybe some people might not like the idea of getting so much into social media and sharing too much about themselves. And keep in mind that you can just make an account just for your language learning. You could, if you're more shy or more introverted, you don't have to put your name, you don't have to put your photo. Just let people know this is your language learning account. This is what language you're learning. You want to look for these types of people, and you can make your account for the purpose of your practice, just as Daniel did. I love that idea. He started the podcast to improve his English. That's really exciting.
Actually, I have a second podcast, which is called the Vocab Man.
I saw that, and I love that because I am a vocab man. I'm addicted to words. And whenever I almost have a psychological problem, because when I hear a word I don't know, I have to write it down, and I just have notebooks full of undefined words.
Yeah.
I'll get to it. I'll get to it one day, but I capture them at first, but there's just so many.
Great.
So it's called the Vocab Man. The Vocab
Exactly.
Man. Okay.
And it's similar as you explained. Whenever I come across a vocabulary word that I want to learn, instead of just writing it down, I make an episode out of it, and
cool.
then I publish it so that other learners can learn as well.
Yeah, words. So fun to collect new words as well. Again, people fire up, water your curiosity. You're gonna need it. Now, to conclude, Daniel, what would be your number one piece of advice? I know that's a big question, and that's hard for us. We constantly say, this is not one size fits all. There's not one magic bullet. We both believe that. But what would you say to a beginner to encourage them on their way?
I would say try to integrate your passion into your language learning. I want to keep that short.
Beautiful. And friends who are watching, you're going to see that for sure. On my channel, people know that I love card games, and I just decided one day I'm going to make one for Mandarin. And that's how I got started, because that was one of my passions. I actually, after work or after school, I would come home I would tell myself, I'm too tired to learn a language today. And then I would go off and play games. And then one day I realized, wait, I'm not tired enough to not play games, so obviously I still have some energy, right? So we have energy for the things that we love to do, right? So put the language learning into there, integrate it with your passion. Great advice. Thank you so much for coming on, Daniel. And guys, I really hope this is like a 1 hour. It's very compact. We moved through a lot. Rewatch this episode, check the notes. I'll put in some good descriptions there of all the tools and all the social media that we mentioned. But I really hope this will be something practical that you can use. And you know what? Come on Twitter, start an account there. Use the langtwt hashtag. Let myself and Daniel know about you, because that's how Daniel and I believe that's how we bumped into each other, and we're pretty active and pretty regular on there. And I'm on there as Lang Card Games, LNG Card Games. That's me on Twitter, so you can find me as well. But thank you so much, Daniel. It was absolutely a blast. So fun to meet you in this way. And I think in the future we should take a deep dive on Switzerland, where you're from, and talk more about the language there and the culture there. That would be super fun. We could do that, or we could do gaming and language learning, because you're a gamer, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Matt. And of course, I want to invite you to my Fluent podcast. It would also be really great to get to know your story about your card game.
I
It's
would
really
I would
amazing.
love it.
Or your card games, because you
Yeah,
have several games.
right. I would love that for sure. And if people would follow us over there to listen, they'll find the audio quality much better, I'm sure, with you. This guy is the podcasting master. Okay, thank you, Daniel. And thank you
Thank you
everybody
for
for
having me.
watching. We'll see you back here next time. Bye bye for now.
Bye.